Everyone thinks the Will of Davy started with Joy Boy. It's the ultimate symbol of freedom, but let's be real, the math doesn't add up. If the D is just about liberation, why do the most ruthless monsters in history, like Rox and Blackbeard, carry that same name? There is a dark, greedy void in the D lineage that Joy Boy simply doesn't explain. The proof is buried in chapter 1155, which labels Rox D. Zebec, a Davy Jonesian pirate, a direct link to the cursed legend who hoards souls at the bottom of the sea. Oda has secretly planted the answer right in front of us. Davy phonetically matches the letter D, and Locker mirrors Rox. We are about to break down the terrifying history of the Davy Clan, and why Imu feared them enough to attempt a total extermination at God Valley. Before we dive into the wild theories, let's get one thing straight. Davy Jones is canon in the world of One Piece. Not just a passing reference, but a named figure with traditions, rules, and consequences tied directly to pirate culture. According to chapter 306, Nico Robin explains that Davy Jones was a legendary pirate cursed by a demon. Greedy beyond belief, he hoarded treasures and souls until he was condemned to live at the bottom of the sea, in a place known as Davy Jones's Locker. And in that underwater abyss, it said everything that sinks becomes his property. But here's where it gets interesting: the Davy backfight. The ridiculous-sounding pirate game Foxy introduced is actually based on this myth. It's not just a gag. In fact, the tradition dates back centuries, where pirate crews risked their own members in high-stakes contests. And to make sure no one cheated, they'd toss coins into the sea as a tribute, a payment to Davy Jones himself. Because if you cheated, well, it was said you'd be dragged straight into the locker. This ritual isn't folklore either. Chapter 1155 dropped a bombshell. Rox D. Zebec was not described as a random tyrant, but as a Davy Jonesian pirate. Someone who didn't just admire the myth, but modeled his entire pirate ideology after it. Ruthless, greedy, and powerful, just like the cursed legend at the bottom of the sea. So the question is, why would Oda go out of his way to connect one of the most dangerous pirates in history to a supposedly fake ghost story? Something deeper is going on, and that leads us to the first theory. What if the mythical Joy Boy and the cursed Davy Jones are the same person? Sounds insane, right? But stick with this. Joy Boy is the mysterious figure from the Void Century. The one who left behind a message at Laughtail, the one who once promised Fishman Island something he couldn't fulfill. But what if the reason he never fulfilled that promise is because he was cursed, trapped at the bottom of the sea, stripped of his freedom, turned into the legend we now know as Davy Jones? In chapter 1155, when Rox D. Zebec confronts Imu, he directly invokes the name of Davy Jones. And he doesn't say it as a joke. He says it like he's referencing an ancient enemy of the world government, and someone the Celestials are terrified of. That kind of name drop doesn't happen by accident. It feels like Oda is telling us Davy Jones was a legendary threat. Now think about this. The Davy backfight. A pirate-centered ritual could have originally been created by Joy Boy himself, a way to bring pirates together without war. And over time, that same tradition became twisted, corrupted by the very man who admired him, and it's Rox D. Zebec. And here's where the Japanese language drops subtle hints. Raka, locker, sounds eerily close to raku, rock, the Japanese word that also ties to Rox D. Zebec. Davy sounds just like the D in the names of Luffy, Roger, and Law. A clever play that might hint that Jones was the first D. So imagine this. Joy Boy, the first pirate to challenge the world government, was ultimately defeated but not killed, but erased and sealed away, cursed to live forever at the bottom of the ocean. Imu didn't just win, but also turned the rebel into a ghost story, hiding him under layers of myth so no one would ever dig up the truth. And it worked. But there's a catch. The symbol of Davy Jones still lingers in pirate games, in cursed seas, in whispered stories passed down through generations, almost like someone wanted to be remembered. But what if Davy Jones isn't Joy Boy but his opposite? That's where the next theory flips everything on its head. Here's a theory that turns the D clan upside down. What if the D doesn't stand for Dawn, Destiny, or even Devil, but actually stands for Davy, the Will of Davy? It sounds bold, maybe even ridiculous. But chapter 1155 might have just planted that exact idea. When Rox is described as a Davy Jonesian pirate, it's more than just a style of piracy. It's an ideology, an entire belief system shaped by one man's hunger, vengeance, and obsession with power. The very idea of using strength to overthrow kings? That's not Joy Boy's peaceful legacy, but something darker. So here's the split. Davy Jones is not Joy Boy. He's the antithesis of Joy Boy. Two ancient pirates with two conflicting ideals. Joy Boy represents freedom, laughter, and unity. Davy Jones represents vengeance, hoarding power, and punishing the world that betrayed him. And guess who follows which path? Luffy, Roger, Saul, and Law, all D's carriers who lean toward Joy Boy's will. Rocks and Blackbeard, ruthless, greedy, chaotic, follow the legacy of Davy Jones. This would mean that the D clan was never one unified lineage. Instead, it was a broken will. One passed down in fragments, split between light and dark, laughter and rage. Joy Boy's D was about liberation. Jones's D was about domination. And that explains Blackbeard perfectly. His yami yami no mi, a fruit of darkness and gravity, sucks in everything around it like a black hole, or a seafloor abyss. A perfect metaphor for Davy Jones's locker. Some fans even speculate that this was Davy's original fruit, and that Blackbeard inherited more than just his ambition. And here's that language twist again. The word Davy phonetically mirrors the D initial, suggesting that the entire Will of D might originate from Davy himself. And the word locker, it's not just a place. It could represent what the world government did to the D clan, locking away their truth during the Void Century. So now the question becomes, if Davy Jones is the root of the Will of D and Joy Boy and Blackbeard are its branches, what happened to the trunk? Who won? Well, we don't know that yet. But the next theory throws an even bigger wrench into everything. Because what if Davy Jones is still alive? You've heard the whispers, the man with the burn scar, the shadowy figure with a road poneglyph who travels the seas surrounded by whirlpools and might hold the key to the One Piece. Nobody knows his name, but what if it's been in front of us this whole time? What if Davy Jones is still alive, hiding in plain sight as the very man guarding the final piece of the puzzle? Let's break it down. The man with the burn scar is tied to whirlpool phenomena. Wherever he appears, whirlpools form, dragging ships down, obscuring movement, and keeping his secrets locked beneath the waves. That already sounds like someone cursed to dwell at the bottom of the sea, right? Now compare that to Davy Jones' locker, the mythic underwater domain where everything sinks and nothing escapes. In folklore, sailors said whirlpools were created by the devil dragging ships into the abyss. And in One Piece, that devil might just be Davy Jones. Some fans believe Jones was never killed, but instead imprisoned either by Imu, by ancient magic, or by a devil fruit curse. But instead of fading away, he adapted, changed his appearance, waited in the shadows, became the man with the burn scar. Not a victim, but a guardian of Void Century artifacts. There's even linguistic support here. In Japanese, hinokizu means burn scar, but hai also means fire. Fire and water are opposing elements in Japanese mythology, and that contrast might be symbolic of a duality inside Jones, a cursed water demon hiding a fiery past. Other fans think the scar isn't just literal, but metaphorical. A burn left by betrayal, by war, by the world government's lies. And if anyone had a reason to carry those wounds, it's the man who fought back during the Void Century and lost. There are even posts online suggesting that Jones was involved with O'Hara, or even sailed with Roger. Think about that for a second. The most ancient man in the world drifting through history, protecting the truth the world government wants buried. It makes sense. It's terrifying. But if Jones is alive, hiding in the modern world, what else is he hiding? And that leads us to a theory that'll make you rethink the entire treasure hunt. We've heard it all that the One Piece is a weapon, a message, a treasure, even a joke. But what if it's exactly where you'd never think to look? What if the One Piece is sitting at the very bottom of the sea? In Davy Jones' locker, guarded by the ghost, the curse, or even the corpse of the first pirate? This theory starts with Pirate Island, Hachinosu, the supposed birthplace of Davy Jones' legend. In chapter 306, we're introduced to this lawless island shaped like a whale, with coins thrown into the ocean during the Davy back fight. It's a pirate tradition offering payment to the gatekeeper of a forbidden place. And that's what the locker is. A vault of lost things, ships, lives, treasures, and maybe the One Piece itself. In SBS Volume 38, Oda describes Davy Jones as a greedy pirate who hoarded all he could, fitting perfectly with the idea that the One Piece is not a symbolic reward, but literally the greatest hoard of treasure ever assembled, sealed away by the first man who ever touched it. Now picture this. Roger and his crew arrive at Laughtail, find the treasure, and just start laughing. Not because it's a joke, but because they realize the final reward is buried at sea, locked in a myth, protected by someone everyone forgot. A cruel twist on a classic story. You wanted freedom? You get a curse. And here's the linguistic twist. The word takara means treasure. Pair that with raka, locker, and you get treasure in the locker. Add in Hachinosu, which can phonetically resemble Hashi no Su or Edge's Nest, and suddenly the whale-shaped island becomes a literal marker for the edge of the world, pointing down into the abyss. Even the whale imagery connects. Remember Jonah from the Bible? Swallowed by a whale, trapped in darkness, then spat back out. That's Davy Jones's entire myth in a nutshell. And maybe it's Luffy's future too. But not all clues point to myth and mystery. Some are hiding in plain sight, like the eerie similarities between Davy Jones and Vander Decken. If Davy Jones is just a myth, then why does Vander Decken exist? Think about it. A pirate who sails a ghost ship, obsessed with an ancient weapon, cursed with a power that lets him mark anything and target it from anywhere. It's not a coincidence, is it? Because it's suspiciously specific. Vander Decken 9, the creepy fishman from Fishman Island, captains the Flying Dutchman, a name borrowed directly from real-world maritime legends. And in those legends, the Flying Dutchman and Davy Jones are often intertwined. Cursed sailors who can't die, doomed to drift forever beneath the sea. Now in one piece, they're separate. But are they really? Vander Decken's obsession with Shirahoshi, or Poseidon, one of the ancient weapons, mirrors the kind of ambition we'd expect from a man tied to the Void Century. He's not just some deranged stalker, but might be following a script written long ago. Here's what fans are theorizing online. Davy Jones may be an ancestor of the Decken bloodline, cursed generations ago with powers that warped over time. Decken's devil fruit, the Mato Mato no Mi, lets him mark people and objects, like claiming ownership over them. That's eerily close to Davy Jones's myth, owning everything that sinks into the sea. His cruise ship appears out of nowhere, like a ghost from the abyss, shrouded in mist, dragging souls into legend. There's even linguistic overlap. Decken in Japanese sounds like Debbie, Davy, again tying back to the D initial. And Jones is called a sea devil, Umi no Akuma. Decken, a fishman pirate with sea-based abilities, living in the very depths Davy Jones is said to haunt. So is Decken a descendant? Or maybe a reminder? A living warning that Jones' curse is still active, still spreading, and still dragging people toward the locker. So now we've got ancient pirates, cursed bloodlines, sunken treasure, and secret guardians. But before we wrap this up, we need to talk about how all of this blew up online. It's not just a headcanon anymore. The theory that Davy Jones is more than just a myth is spreading like wildfire across fan circles, especially after Chapter 1155 dropped that Davy Jonesian bomb. On X, fans have been dissecting every panel, every name drop, every whirlpool, and the conclusions, they range from genius to terrifying. A well-known One Piece analyst pointed out that Robin's explanation of Davy Jones back in Chapter 306 was not random exposition but might have been an early seed, a quiet setup for something Oda planned to revisit hundreds of chapters later. That's peak Oda foreshadowing. Meanwhile, another person dropped a theory that had everyone talking. Davy Jones is the man with the burn scar. It all fits. The whirlpools, the isolation, the Void Century silence. He's not dead, but just waiting. Another person who took it even further. They believe Davy Jones is a guardian and a survivor of the Void Century, someone who fought with Joy Boy, maybe even against him. Their post suggests Jones is Hinokizu himself, wielding some kind of sea-based or sea-stone-related power that lets him control the ocean and guard the poneglyphs. And let's not forget another theorist who posted something that broke the internet. What if Rock's D Zebec challenged Imu to a Davy backfight? What if the entire idea of risking crew members was weaponized into a war tactic? A pirate game against the gods? Wild, right? But it makes sense if you believe Rox was the inheritor of Jones' will, not Joy Boy's. Even crazier that someone theorized that Jones is tied to Imu's demonic entourage, suggesting a cosmic duality, Joy Boy as a sun god, and Jones as a fallen sea devil. And just yesterday someone posted a killer observation. Hachinosu's mountain, the one shaped like a whale, might be a nod to the biblical story of Jonah, a man swallowed by a beast of the sea and trapped inside. Sound familiar? Yeah, that's Davy Jones's locker, hiding in plain sight. These aren't just random posts, they're part of a larger pattern. The fandom is picking up on something Oda's been quietly building for years. And if the theories are right, we haven't seen the last of Davy Jones. One Piece is a story built on puns, double meanings, and names that mean more than they seem. And when it comes to Davy Jones, the Japanese language might have been giving us clues all along. Let's start with the obvious. Davy Jones, the katakana spelling of Davy Jones. does more than localize a Western myth. It drops a huge hint. The first syllable, Debi, sounds almost exactly like the letter D. Coincidence? Not in Oda's world, especially since chapter 1155 introduces the term Davy Jonesian, or in Japanese, Davy Jones, framing Davy Jones not just as a person, but an ideology, one that contrasts Nika's joyful freedom with raw, greedy domination. Raka, locker. At first glance, it just means locker, a sealed container. But phonetically, it mirrors raku, the word for rock. You know, as in rocks dug Zebec. If Davy Jones's locker is the place where all lost things go and Rocks is the pirate most obsessed with domination, it's possible the locker isn't just a place. It could be a metaphor for hiding truth, sealing history, or imprisoning ideas. Maybe even Joy Boy's legacy itself. Hachinosu, beehive, the name of Pirate Island. But linguistically, it sounds a lot like Hashi no Su, which means nest at the edge. That doesn't just describe the island's geography, it's a poetic description of the edge of the world, or even the seafloor. Could it be a hint that Hachinosu is sitting on top of Davy Jones's locker? Umi no Akuma, sea devil. In chapter 306, Davy Jones is referred to as a cursed pirate touched by a demon. The term sea devil comes up again in Japanese lore, but in One Piece, there's a contrast between this and the idea of Umi no Kami, sea god, which is what Nika represents. That's where things get deep. Nika equals freedom, light, joy. Davy Jones, curse, depth, confinement. One is the sun, the other is the abyss. It's a duality, and the Japanese wordplay draws that line cleanly. Takara, treasure. One Piece, the greatest treasure in the world. But the word Takara paired with Raka makes for a pretty eerie implication. The treasure isn't in the sky or on some island, it's locked away. Literally, treasure in the locker. So yeah, when you zoom out, this isn't just clever naming. It's a linguistic roadmap, leading us from a Western myth straight into the heart of One Piece's deepest secrets. Why did Imu fear Davy Jones so much that even his descendants had to be exterminated? Because if Davy Jones really existed in the One Piece timeline, then the ocean floor, his supposed domain, could be hiding far more than just shipwrecks. It could be the prison of a godlike being Imu wanted sealed away. Some fans even speculate that Davy Jones was one of the 4 ancient gods referenced in the Skipaya mural. If Joy Boy was the sun god, then Davy might have been the sea god, a rival, or maybe even an uneasy ally in the war against Imu. This would explain why Zebec called himself a worshipper of Davy Jones, treating him not just as an ancestor but as a divine figure whose will survived through the Davy Clan. And here's where it gets darker. If Davy Jones was cursed to roam the depths, just like Zunesha was punished to walk the seas for eternity, then Imu may have shackled him personally. Which means the world government hasn't just been hiding history, they've been hiding a literal god beneath the waves. But if that's true, then what role do Zebec teach and even Luffy play in freeing or replacing that god? Here's something most fans get wrong. Rocks D. Zebec wasn't really leading some legendary pirate crew out of pure ambition. What if the so-called Rocks pirates were never truly a crew at all, but a gathering bound by fear, greed, and the Davy Clan's legacy? The evidence is already there. Zebec's recruitment strategy wasn't random piracy. It was tied to the Davy backfight, the same pirate games that carried his family's name. It wasn't just a pastime, it was a tradition. Just as the Straw Hats fight for freedom and Roger sailed for truth, Zebec fought to keep his clan's legacy alive through these contests. Now consider this. The God Valley incident might not have been about treasure or devil fruits, or even the celestial dragons themselves. The real prize was the eradication of the Davy Clan. Zebec's family had been hiding there for years, dodging persecution, until Garling used the hunting festival as cover to wipe them out once and for all. But Zebec wasn't naive. He stormed Mary Joise itself, flexing his devotion to Davy Jones right in front of Imu, daring them to try and erase his bloodline. That wasn't just rebellion, it was desperation. He knew his clan was already marked for extinction. And yet, in the chaos of God Valley, his downfall wasn't only because of Roger and Garp. Some theorists suggest Zebec's failure came from his inability to form true alliances. He couldn't connect with Roger the way Luffy connects with allies today, and that isolation doomed both him and his family. But here's the kicker. What if that same mistake doesn't repeat? What if Luffy will be forced to do what Zebec couldn't, ally with his greatest rival Blackbeard to finally defeat Imu? The big question is this: why does Imu hate the Davy Clan so much? Why hunt down their descendants across centuries? The answer might lie in something Zebec himself revealed. His clan's survival depended on hiding in the underworld. But what exactly does that mean? In One Piece, the underworld can mean three things: the black market of crime syndicates, the hidden realms like Elbaf's underworld, or the far darker possibility, the literal realm of demons and devils. If we take Zebec's words literally, it suggests his people weren't just outlaws. They were tied to something ancient and terrifying, something Imu wanted buried. Think about it. Imu's powers have always been framed with abyss-like imagery. Darkness, shadows, almost demonic in nature. Meanwhile, legends call Davy Jones the Sea Devil. Could it be that Imu's own power is stolen, siphoned, or borrowed from Davy Jones himself? And that killing off the Davy Clan is the only way to ensure no one can release their imprisoned god? Even the smaller details connect. In chapter 1159, we see Don Marlin's death. Morgan's already in his role as the head of the news and hints that Morgan's was feeding information directly to Hachinosu, the pirate island tied to the Davy backbites. Some fans speculate Morgan's and Zebec may have actually been allies, with Morgan's deliberately leaking secrets to help the Davy clan resist Imu's purge. But here's where it gets chilling. If Davy Jones really was a godlike figure chained in the abyss, then Imu's entire reign is built on stolen power, which means sooner or later that power has to be reclaimed. And who better to do it than Blackbeard, the man inheriting Zebec's will, and Luffy, the successor to Joy Boy? Here's a thought that flips the entire story on its head. What if Davy Jones wasn't Joy Boy himself, but his greatest rival? The parallels are impossible to ignore. In the current era, Luffy faces Blackbeard, the rival pirate who embodies chaos and ambition. In the past, Roger clashed with Xebec, a man obsessed with tearing down the world government by any means necessary. And if we go even further back, then maybe Joy Boy's true rival was none other than Davy Jones, the sea god cursed to the ocean floor. This would explain so much. Zebec describing himself as a worshipper of Davy Jones? That's not just family pride, it's reverence for a figure who once challenged Joy Boy himself. And the constant theme of inherited will? It may not be about descendants carrying on their ancestors' exact dreams, but about entire rivalries being passed down through generations. Think about it. Joy Boy versus Davy, Roger versus Zebec, Luffy versus Teach. The pattern repeats because history keeps cycling until someone finally breaks it. Maybe that's why Oda keeps emphasizing that the Will of D carries both light and darkness, because it's not just one destiny, but two conflicting paths. And here's where it gets interesting. If Joy Boy and Davy once failed to put aside their differences, it may have doomed them both against Imu. That same mistake at God Valley, with Zebec and Roger refusing to unite, led to another loss, which leaves only one possibility for the present. Luffy and Teach may have no choice but to join forces, however briefly, to defeat Imu. Because if they don't, history will repeat itself, and the D-Clan will fall once again. What if Davy Jones never truly died? Robin once said he was cursed by the devil and doomed to the bottom of the sea, claiming everything that sinks as his own. That sounds less like death and more like imprisonment. And if we look closely at the legend of the man marked by flames, the pieces begin to line up. Kid and Law both heard rumors of a mysterious figure who sinks ships with whirlpools, sails a blackened vessel, and supposedly carries the fourth road poneglyph. Many assumed it was Dragon. But what if it's someone far older? Someone who's been roaming the seas for centuries? Davy Jones fits perfectly. A burned, scarred figure cursed by Imu, wandering endlessly, guarding a poneglyph until Joy Boy's successor arrives? In fact, that might have been Joy Boy's final act of trust, to leave one of the poneglyphs in the hands of his rival, knowing that only the future would decide whether they remained enemies or became reluctant allies. And here's the detail that makes it even more convincing. The phrase Davy Jones' locker in real-world lore literally refers to the abyss of the ocean, the same imagery tied to Imu's powers. If Imu cursed him personally, then the man marked by flames may carry both the wound of that curse and the burden of history itself. Imagine the reveal. The Straw Hats finally track down the last road poneglyph, only to find it in the hands of the Sea Devil himself, still alive, still waiting, and still holding a grudge against Imu. That wouldn't just be a lore bomb, it would be one of the most chilling moments in the entire series. Here's where things get personal. If the Davy Clan really was Imu's greatest enemy, then it's no coincidence that three of the most important pirates in the current era, Shanks, Blackbeard, and Luffy, are all tied to this bloodline in one way or another. Take Shanks. Born on God Valley, possibly the son of a celestial dragon and a Davy Clan woman, he represents a fusion of two opposing worlds. No wonder the Gorosei treat him with unusual respect. He may be one of the few people alive with the blood of both the rulers and their sworn enemies. Then there's Blackbeard. As the confirmed son of Zebec, he's the direct heir of the Davy bloodline. But unlike Luffy, who carries Joy Boy's will through freedom and laughter, Blackbeard embodies the darker side of inherited will, ambition, greed, and chaos. His Jolly Roger with three skulls might not just symbolize multiple personalities, but the three great figures of his lineage, Teach, Zebec, and Davy Jones. And yet, despite their rivalry, Blackbeard may be destined to walk the same path Zebec once failed to. He might have no choice but to stand alongside Luffy, the heir of Joy Boy, against Imu. Because if history shows us anything, it's that no single member of the D Clan has ever defeated Imu alone. Joy Boy failed. Zebec failed. Only by uniting light and darkness can the cycle be broken. Which brings us to the present day. Shanks, Blackbeard, and Luffy are the last major players carrying echoes of the Davy Clan. And when the final war begins, each of them will be forced to decide whether they'll repeat the mistakes of the past or finally bring an end to the hidden war that started centuries ago. When you look at the story this way, everything starts to connect. The Void Century wasn't just Joy Boy versus Imu, it may have also been Joy Boy versus Davy. God Valley wasn't just Roger and Garp defeating rocks, it was the extermination of the last remnants of the Davy Clan. And now, in the current era, it's no longer just Luffy versus Blackbeard, it's about whether they can finally break the curse that destroyed every generation before them. Here's the irony. Davy Jones, remembered as a cursed pirate, may actually have been one of the most important figures in history. His descendants carried fragments of his will. Zebec's defiance, Teach's ambition, Shanks' mysterious balance between worlds. Even Luffy himself may unknowingly be walking a path that only makes sense when viewed as the next chapter in Davy's unfinished war. If this theory holds true, then the Will of D isn't about one person inheriting a dream. It's about two opposing destinies colliding over and over until the right pair finally unites. Joy Boy and Davy failed, Roger and Zebec failed, but Luffy and Teach, they might just succeed. And that's what makes the endgame of One Piece so compelling, because the real question isn't just whether Luffy will become Pirate King or whether Blackbeard will fall. The true question is whether they'll finally bring the dawn by doing what no one before them could, ending Imu's reign together. Maybe that's why the Harley prophecy spoke of two who will never meet until the final era. Maybe that's why Davy's shadow still lingers across history. And maybe, just maybe, the next time the Abyss clashes with the sun, it won't end in failure. Because if the cycle is ever going to break, it has to happen now. Most people point to Imu as the shadow ruler of the world, but what if Imu's just the stepping stone and the real final ruler is someone much closer to Luffy's world? Blackbeard, the son of the infamous rocks Zebec. But we need to talk first about his devil fruit before diving deeper to the lore. What if Teach isn't a Logia user at all? What if he's a mythical Zoan? Some fans believe Blackbeard's fruit is modeled after Daikokuten, the Japanese god of darkness, fortune, and thievery, a literal god of chaos. And guess what? Daikokuten is associated with voids that swallow anything. He's revered as a luck deity for thieves, and he's portrayed as a three-faced figure, which oddly matches Blackbeard's three skulls. If that's true, then Blackbeard isn't breaking the rules of the One Piece world. He's playing by god-level cheat codes. He's destined to steal, to collect, and to overturn the heavens themselves. And that would explain why his fruit behaves more like a bottomless pit than a standard Logia. Here's something wild. The final war in One Piece won't just be a battle of ideals, but might already be playing out as a game of reversey. We've already seen the Marineford War, and we've felt the chaos of Wano. But Oda's saving something much bigger, an all-out global war that'll make everything before it feel like a warm-up. And if you've been paying attention, the hint's been hiding in plain sight: board games. During the Wano climax, Go pieces were used to represent the war. But in Chapter 1121, the setup on the board looked different. It matched the exact opening formation of a reversey match. And here's where things get really interesting. In reversey, the game begins with 2 white and 2 black discs. The whole goal is to flip the board to your color, dominate. But if you map this to the current One Piece story, those discs could symbolize 4 major forces: Luffy, Blackbeard, Imu, and Kobe. Luffy and Kobe representing white and liberation, Blackbeard and Imu representing black and domination. And what's the literal translation of doi reversey in Japanese? Black turn, domination. The direct opposite would be white turn, liberation. You see where this is going. The board is set, the players are moving, but one question still lingers. If Blackbeard and Imu are on the same side of darkness, what happens when Blackbeard decides he no longer wants to share the throne? Let's stop pretending Blackbeard is just another Yonko. He's not Kaido, he's not Big Mom, and he's definitely not just some strong brute chasing treasure. Blackbeard is the most pirate-like character in all of One Piece, and that's exactly why he's going to be the final villain. Oda confirmed it himself. In the SBS of Volume 62, someone asked why Blackbeard's crew originally included a beautiful female pirate, only for her to vanish in later drafts. Oda's answer? Because the Blackbeard pirates were meant to be the most pirate pirates in the story. That gritty, raw image? He worked years to perfect it, and if One Piece is ultimately a pirate story, it only makes sense that the final enemy isn't some ancient king or celestial puppet master. It's the pirate who represents everything Luffy isn't. And that brings us to something massive that most fans overlook: Davy Jones. Back in March 2000, 2024, a theory dropped on a small channel, barely noticed at the time, that linked Blackbeard and rocks to the legend of Davy Jones. But now, the entire story is starting to line up with it. And here's why it matters. In the prototype version of One Piece Romance Dawn, pirates were divided into two types: the Peacemen, pirates who maintain balance and protect, and the Morganeers, pirates who destroy and bring chaos. Vegapunk, in his final message, warned the D Clan that among you there is Mo. That word Mo in Japanese, it can mean also, as in there's also someone among the Ds who doesn't stand for freedom. But there's a deeper layer. Mo might be short for Morgan, referencing the Morganeers of Romance Dawn. So, what if Blackbeard isn't just a D? What if he's the descendant of the Morganeers, the ones meant to destroy the world, not save it? It would explain why he showed up with a full set of teeth in that one chilling panel. Why Vegapunk hesitated? Why even among the D Clan, Teach feels like an intruder? Because if Joy Boy represents the Will of Dawn, Blackbeard might carry the Will of Dusk, and his ancestor, Davy Jones. Before Luffy, before Roger, before even Rocks, there may have been two original Ds whose battle shaped the entire world: Joy Boy and Davy Jones. You've probably heard the name Davy Jones tossed around in pirate lore, but in One Piece, his name might be more than just a spooky sea legend. Robin described him as a pirate cursed by the devil, now trapped beneath the sea. But something about that never made sense. Devil fruit users sink. They can't live underwater. But Davy Jones, he can only live beneath it. It's the complete opposite curse, and maybe that's the point. If Joy Boy brought light, celebration, and freedom, then Davy Jones represented the dark, cursed, and forgotten depths. Two polar opposites. Two Ds whose clash may have set the entire Will of D conflict in motion. And the names aren't random. Both Joy Boy and Davy Jones have rumored roots in Caribbean folklore, the same region that inspired the golden age of piracy. Joy Boy is said to reflect Caribbean figures known for dance, song, and joy. Davy Jones, based on the West Indian Duppy, a wandering soul that collects the drowned. Two pirate archetypes. Two legacies. Joy Boy's will passed to Roger, and eventually to Luffy. Davy Jones's will passed from Rocks D Zebec to Blackbeard. And the contrast between Luffy and Teach has been there since day one. Mocktown, a bar, a pie. Luffy hated the cherry pie. Blackbeard loved it. Teach hated the drink. Luffy downed it like a champ. They didn't even talk much, but Luffy looked at him like he already knew what Blackbeard really was. Oda knew what he was doing. We already know Blackbeard's crew is actively hunting devil fruit users, but how exactly does that work? It's not like you just loot a devil fruit off someone's body like a dropped item in a video game. Here's the usual explanation. When a devil fruit user dies, the devil inside them leaves and finds the nearest fruit to reincarnate into. But Blackbeard isn't playing by those rules. His darkness has a unique, terrifying ability. It sucks things in. And what if, instead of waiting for the devil to escape and possess a new fruit, Blackbeard is pulling that entity directly into himself, grabbing it mid-transfer? And here's where things get even creepier. During the Dressrosa arc, we saw Burgess attempting to kill Sabo and steal the Mera no Mi. But Burgess doesn't have the Yami no Mi. So how was he planning to capture the power? He had something wrapped in cloth, something strange and ominous. What if that cloth wasn't hiding a weapon, but a fragment of darkness? Something created by Blackbeard, a small portable piece of his own devil fruit's gravitational pull, a devil trap. And that idea starts making even more sense when you consider what devil fruits leave behind. We've seen powers continue to affect the world even after the user dies. Big Mom's homies kept moving. Punk Hazard's climate was permanently altered by Akainu and Aokiji's clash. Devil powers don't always end with the user, so why not store that power like a black box, a miniature black hole waiting for the next soul to snatch? And remember what Ace once asked, where does Thatch's soul go after being killed? That line might have meant more than we realized. What if Ace suspected Blackbeard didn't just kill Thatch, but absorbed him? Because Blackbeard's body might not just be a host for devil fruits, it might be a locker. Just like the legend of Davy Jones's locker, a place where souls go to disappear. Blackbeard's body shouldn't work. No one else in the One Piece world has been able to eat two devil fruits without their body literally tearing itself apart. And yet, here he is, stacking powers, breaking the rules, and smiling through it all. Marco saw it firsthand. If it were a normal person, it'd be impossible, but Teach is a little different. What does that even mean? Different how? Well, there are two theories, and both are terrifying. Theory 1, his body was surgically modified using the Ope no Mi. Remember what Doflamingo said? That fruit can grant immortality, switch personalities, remove hearts, even completely restructure someone's biology. If Roxy Zebec really had the Ope fruit in the past, and if Blackbeard is his son, it's possible he used that power to alter Teach's body before he was even fully grown. Imagine it. Multiple hearts, extra organ systems, a human body rebuilt from the inside out for one purpose, to house multiple devils. But the second theory might be even crazier. Theory 2, it's not surgery, it's the curse of Davy Jones. Oda actually drew Davy Jones in an old SBS, and guess what? He looks suspiciously like Blackbeard. and Robin described him as a pirate cursed by the devil, forced to live at the bottom of the ocean. But that flips the entire devil fruit logic upside down. Devil fruit users can't survive in the sea. That's their weakness. So how is Davy Jones alive only under the sea? What if his curse is the opposite? What if instead of rejecting the ocean, his body absorbs it? What if Blackbeard isn't breaking the devil fruit rule? He's just operating under a completely different curse? Think of it this way. Davy Jones is said to trap the souls of drowned sailors. His locker collects ships, treasure, and spirits at the bottom of the sea. What if Blackbeard's body is that locker? Not a metaphor, a literal vessel, a black hole of souls, powers, and memories? It even makes sense of Ace's question, where does Thatch's soul go? Because what if Teach doesn't just steal powers but traps people inside himself? In Japanese, the words locker and rocker are written the same. And who do we think of when we hear rocker in One Piece? Brook, the Soul King, the man who brings souls back through music. Brook frees, Blackbeard traps. One sings to release, the other devours in silence. A perfect contrast. Let's go way back to Rock's Zebec, the man feared even by Garp and Roger, the pirate who dared to aim not just for treasure, but for the throne of the world. What gave him that ambition? According to Sengoku, Rox got too close to the greatest taboo in the world, and now we know what that taboo probably is. Imu, the true ruler of the world, the one hiding behind the celestial dragons. But Rox didn't just hear about Imu, he met them. Chapter 1155 confirms it. Rox broke into the Room of Flowers at Pangia Castle. But he didn't finish the job. He stopped because he realized something. There was a power inside that room he couldn't control. The national treasure. Doflamingo made it clear, you need the Ope no Mi to unlock it. And here's where things get spooky. There's a panel showing Rox making a gesture exactly like Laws when he uses Shambles. That hand sign, that pose, it's not random. Oda has used identical poses before to hint at shared powers, like with the Bari no Mi. And in a later scene, the Rox pirates are shown slicing through an iceberg, something perfectly doable with the Ope no Mi. Even the sound effects match. If Rox had that fruit or access to it, then he was one step away from using the national treasure to take over the world. But he was missing something. He didn't have enough money. The Ope fruit is said to cost 5 billion berries, the same value we once heard for the Gomu fruit in Romance Dawn. That's not just a price tag, that's how dangerous these fruits are. So Rox needed time, he needed funding. But before he could get it, he was stopped. And years later, Blackbeard picked up where he left off. Here's the part most people miss. Blackbeard might already know everything. About Imu, about the Room of Flowers, even about the national treasure itself. And it's all thanks to one man, Lafitte. 2 years ago, when the revelry was underway, the world government was distracted. There was chaos, riots, smoke rising from Mariajois, and that might have been the exact moment Lafitte slipped in. He's not just a smooth talker, he can fly. He uses hypnosis, and he's been part of Blackbeard's crew since the very beginning. If anyone could have infiltrated Pangia Castle during the revelry, it's him. Imagine what he saw, the Room of Flowers. Imu's silhouette, maybe even hints of the treasure Doflamingo spoke of. He wouldn't need to fight anyone, just observe, memorize, report back to Teach. And here's the kicker, Blackbeard's hobby is literally studying history. He's not just chasing power blindly, he understands the system, the symbols, the things that have kept the celestial dragons in power for 800 years. He's probably figured out the same thing Dragon has, that the world isn't ruled by titles or fleets. It's ruled by one hidden force. And that force is Imu and the devil inside them. That's the real reason no revolution has succeeded, not because of armies or weapons, but because of one entity anchoring the entire world order. And now, Blackbeard wants to pull that anchor up and steal it. Blackbeard doesn't just want to become Pirate King, that's small potatoes. He wants something much bigger, something only Rox D. Zebec dared to dream of, to become the king of the world. In the world of One Piece, no one even thinks about that title. The celestial dragons act like gods. The 5 elders bend reality. And Imu, they're a shadow that nobody even knows exists. But Rox figured it out. He broke into the Room of Flowers. He met Imu, and he realized, if I take them down, the world is mine. But he couldn't finish it. He was missing something, the national treasure, and he didn't have the Ope no Mi to unlock it. Now fast forward to Blackbeard. He's learned from Rock's failure. He knows he needs leverage, power, influence, and he's building it all right now. First, Garp captured. The next would probably be Borsalino, Admiral Kizaru. With Garp and Borsalino as prisoners, Blackbeard doesn't just have muscle, he has bargaining chips. And here's the genius. In chapter 1080, Blackbeard says he wants to turn Hachinosu into an independent nation. That's his official demand when holding Kobe hostage. But 46 chapters later, in 1126, his tone changes completely now. He says, "You can't win this without dealing with the world government. And the key piece I need is Kobe." He's not talking about diplomacy anymore, he's talking about war. So what if Kobe was just the beginning? If he captures Borsellino too, he could make 2 demands to the world government or threaten a double execution. And where would it happen? New Marine. Just like how Ace's execution at Marineford was staged as a spectacle, this would be round 2. A final public showdown. And this time, it's not just the world watching, it's the entire balance of power on the line. That's when it all comes full circle. Luffy as a pirate, Kobe as a marine, both pushed into a corner, and both forced to team up. A pirate and a marine facing down the most dangerous man alive. Just like Garp and Roger once stood together at God Valley. Now it's Luffy and Kobe that might be the second God Valley incident. Blackbeard doesn't just want to take hostages, he wants to send a message. And the perfect opportunity? A direct strike on New Marine HQ. Think about it. Right now, the Revolutionary Army is tearing through Maria Joie. If Sakazuki, the Fleet Admiral Akainu, is forced to personally respond like he did with the Kuma incident, that would leave the Navy's core base exposed. And who's left to defend it? Not Fujitora. He's banned from Navy bases. Not Green Bull. He's been going rogue. That leaves Kizaru. Borsellino, the same man who's been wavering ever since Egghead. The same man who killed Vegapunk with his own hands and visibly regretted it. He watched Bonnie almost die. He saw Saturn's cruelty. He realized the deal the world government made with Kuma was rotten from the start. Even his usual cold, professional smile couldn't hide the cracks. And it goes deeper. When he told Saturn, "Let me do this by the book," it wasn't just military jargon. That phrase, Sujio Tosu, comes from old-school Yakuza code. It means doing things with principle, with logic, with honor. But the Celestial Dragons don't follow books. They rewrite them. Now Borsellino's stuck and torn between loyalty and morality. And in that fragile state, Blackbeard arrives. It'll be a battle of extremes. Kizaru, the man of light, fighting to protect a crumbling idea of justice. Blackbeard, the man of darkness, trying to tear the system down and rebuild it in his own image. And both of them rely almost entirely on devil fruits. In Film Z, Zephyr even mocked Borsellino for being too dependent on his fruit. And Blackbeard said outright, he knows the risk of relying on devil fruits, but he doesn't care, because the power is worth it. But here's the difference. Kizaru hesitates and Blackbeard never does. And in that hesitation, I think Kizaru falls. Just like how Rox once killed a Marine Admiral, Blackbeard will take down one of the Navy's last true symbols of power. The fall of New Marine will mark the turning point, the death of justice as the world knows it, and the rise of a new ruler of darkness. So here we are, the Navy in shambles, Maria Joie in flames, and Blackbeard rising from the ashes with 2 major hostages, Garp and Kizaru. But what comes next? Public execution, just like Ace. But this time, it's twice as personal. 2 monkeys. Why 2 monkeys? Because the word Kizaru is derived from the Japanese word for yellow monkey, so that's it. 2 symbols of the old world. And 2 reasons for Luffy and Kobe to fight side by side. It's the perfect setup for a second Marineford war. A battlefield where pirates and marines are forced to stand together against a power so massive, so corrupted, it threatens both. And there's one final detail. A quiet visual clue that's been hiding since the very beginning. The moon. When Blackbeard first made his move as a Yonko, the moon was shown full, a symbol of awakening. But in another panel, he's seen crying under a crescent moon. That's the same moon that appeared during Captain Kuro's attack on Syrup Village. And guess what he said? "It's a crescent moon tonight. Nights like this get my blood pumping." Kuro, the first real planner villain in One Piece, was obsessed with faking his death and seizing control quietly. Sound familiar? It should, because Oda uses parallels. Kuro to Blackbeard, Django to Lafitte, both use hypnosis. Django made Kaya sign a contract. Could Lafitte make someone sign a devil contract? Oda even mirrored their designs after Michael Jackson. And here's where it gets scary. Django, originally a pirate, ends up joining the Marines. Could Lafitte one day betray Blackbeard too? Oda loves symmetry, and this might be a hint that even among devils, betrayal is inevitable. But that doesn't matter to Blackbeard, because he's too far gone. By the end, he won't just be a Yonko. He won't even be Pirate King. He'll be something else entirely. The man who killed the Marines, who dethroned the gods, who swallowed the light, and stood at the top of the world and as its true and final king. The Will of Davy Jones reborn. and only one person will stand in his way. Not Joy Boy, not Roger's ghost, just one rubber man with a broken hat, a scar under his eye, and a promise to keep. Man, honestly, that was a ride. Like, I don't even know where to start because this theory just flips everything we thought we knew about God Valley, the Rocks Pirates, and even the Will of D on its head. For the longest time, we've all been repeating the same story. Roger and Garp teamed up. They took down Rocks. End of story. But now it feels like we were only hearing the sanitized, government-approved version of events, and the truth is way, way darker. The idea that the Celestial Dragons weren't just hunting slaves for sport, but literally wiping out an entire bloodline, the Davy Clan, that hits different. Because it suddenly makes sense why God Valley felt so mysterious, why characters like Garling, Dragon, Shacky, Roger, and even Shanks were all tied to that place. It wasn't coincidence, it was like fate pulling all these people together for the extermination of a legacy that Imu couldn't allow to survive. And then there's Davy Jones. Bro, I can't get over how crazy that is. We've joked about Davy Jones for years, thought of him as a throwaway reference Oda slipped in during Long Ring Longland, but when you actually connect it to the underworld, to curses, to gods chained beneath the sea, it just works too well. Imagine if Davy Jones isn't just a myth, but a godlike figure Imu personally shackled. That makes Imu's fear so much more personal, like their entire reign depends on keeping this sea devil buried. What really gets me, though, is how this theory reframes Zebec. He's always been painted as this insane, chaotic villain, right? But here, he feels almost tragic. A man fighting not just for ambition, but for the survival of his people, his family, his bloodline. He wasn't building a crew like Luffy. He wasn't searching for freedom like Roger. He was desperately clinging to the last remnants of the Davy Clan, trying to keep their memory alive through traditions like the Davy backfight. And when you see it like that, his clash with Roger isn't just about ideology. It's history repeating itself. Joy Boy and Davy Jones all over again. And speaking of repeating, this whole cycle thing just blows my mind. Joy Boy versus Davy, Roger versus Zebec, Luffy versus Teach. It's like Oda's been screaming at us from the very beginning that history doesn't move forward in a straight line. It loops over and over until someone finally breaks the chain. And maybe that's the whole point of the Will of D. It's not just about carrying on dreams. It's about inheriting these rivalries, this eternal conflict of light and darkness, freedom and ambition, and finally resolving it. I gotta say, the idea of Luffy and Blackbeard actually teaming up, that's insane. And yet, it makes so much sense. We've all been waiting for their final showdown, but maybe the real twist is that they'll have to stand side by side, if only for one moment, to take down Imu. Because neither Joy Boy nor Davy could do it alone. Neither Roger nor Zebec could do it alone. So now it falls to these two, the Sun and the Abyss, to do what no generation before them could. And then there's Shanks. Man, Shanks just gets more and more complicated the deeper you go. If he really is the child of a celestial dragon and someone from the Davy Clan, then his entire existence is a paradox. The blood of the oppressor and the blood of the enemy running in his veins. No wonder he moves the way he does. No wonder the Gorosei give him that weird respect. He's like the middle ground, the balancing force. And depending on which way he tips, he could either save the world or doom it. But what sticks with me most is Davy Jones possibly still being alive. Think about that reveal. The Straw Hats finally track down the last road poneglyph. And it's not Dragon waiting there. It's not some random ancient figure. It's the Sea Devil himself. Scarred, cursed, still burning with hatred for Imu. That's the kind of moment that would freeze the entire fandom. Oda doesn't even have to show him in a full fight. Just the presence of this man, alive after centuries, would be enough to shake the foundation of the story. And that's the beauty of it. This theory doesn't just add another cool name drop. It reframes everything. The Void Century, God Valley, the Rocks Pirates, even Luffy's own journey. It makes the Will of D not a straight line, but a clash of destinies that keeps replaying until the right people finally break the cycle. And maybe that's what the Dawn really means. Not just the rise of freedom, but the end of a curse that's been suffocating the world for 900 years. If this is even half right, then One Piece's endgame is about to be bigger, darker, and way more emotional than anyone's prepared for. Because the real question isn't, will Luffy become Pirate King? It's, can Luffy and Blackbeard finally do what Joy Boy and Davy, what Roger and Zebec couldn't? Can they end Imu? And honestly, that possibility alone gives me chills.